Okay, let's unpack this. The launch of RT India. When you hear about a major international news channel expanding, your first thought is probably soft power.
It is, yeah. Things like cultural exchange, sharing perspectives. Seems like a pretty normal global media play on the surface.
But that label, soft power, is exactly what we need to challenge here based on the source material.
Right. This deep dive is really about going beyond that idea of just another channel. We have to examine RT India for what it is, a deliberate, state-funded influence operation.
A PsyOp, a psychological operation.
Exactly. One with very clear, very sharp geopolitical objectives attached to it.
And the launch itself was, it was an unmistakable signal, wasn't it? The source details how Vladimir Putin himself made this high-profile visit to New Delhi.
He personally launched the channel. He didn't send a minister or an ambassador. He showed up.
That physical presence, it just immediately tells you everything you need to know about the strategic importance the Kremlin is placing on this.
Absolutely. It's not a casual press conference. He was there. He was shown around personally by Margarita Simonian, RT's editor-in-chief.
And the source is clear to describe her as a staunch supporter of the war in Ukraine.
Which is a key detail. When you have leadership at that level, people directly invested in military strategy, showing up for a media launch. Well, it's no longer just journalism, is it?
Not at all. It's a tool of the state, an extension of foreign policy.
We've moved from the world of culture to the world of conflict.
So let's talk about the investment, because that really underscores the priority here. The sources mention a glitzy and well-made advertising campaign that ran beforehand.
And not just that, the fact that RT India is employing around 100 staff members right there in its New Delhi studio.
100 people,
Yeah.
all dedicated to pushing this one specific message. That's a significant operational footprint in a crucial foreign capital.
It's a huge investment. And you have to look at the marketing hook they used. The campaign was titled, "A New Voice from an Old Friend."
That line is brilliant in a very cynical way.
It is, because it's doing two things at once. On one hand, it strategically highlights this long, deep relationship between Russia and India.
But on the other hand, and the source points this out, it's also a deliberate act of historical appropriation. They're quietly appropriating Soviet history as Russian.
Let's pause on that for a second, because that's a key tactical move.
It is. For decades, it was the Soviet Union that had a deep strategic relationship with India, especially during the Cold War.
Right, a time when the West was often ambivalent, to put it mildly, toward New Delhi. The USSR offered military support, economic aid.
Political backing at critical moments. That goodwill was accrued by the Soviet state, not just Russia.
Precisely. So by promoting this new channel as a voice from an old friend, modern Russia is essentially trying to cash in a historical favor.
A favor it didn't entirely earn on its own, to secure its own modern political goals.
And they tie it directly to the future. There's a specific quote from one of their presenters in an ad. "Both countries are driving global change shoulder to shoulder. RT India, the story, has a new voice."
That kind of messaging is designed to appeal directly to India's aspirations for global leadership, right? Positioning Russia as this loyal partner in that journey.
It connects their past, their present, and a shared future. But the real urgency, the why now behind this expensive launch, that's all about the current geopolitical context.
India is one of Russia's last vital trading partners, one of the last major economies still maintaining significant commercial links with Moscow.
And the stakes of those links are incredibly high right now. The source material is very clear that India is under acute Western pressure to diminish its commercial links with Moscow.
Because those links that trade in oil and arms are economic lifelines. They help sustain Russia's war effort in Ukraine.
So this is where that whole soft power idea just completely breaks down.
It really does.
The channel isn't about sharing culture. It's a tool deployed specifically to counteract that Western pressure. Its job is to keep unwanted Western influence at bay by manipulating internal Indian opinion.
So the goal is to make the domestic political cost of cutting ties with Russia so high that the Indian government just can't bend to Western demand.
Exactly. That is an operational goal, not a cultural one. It's a PsyOp.
Okay, so what's the official story? What are they telling people they're doing?
Well, the official line, according to RT India's CEO Ashok Bagaria, is that the objective is to present an alternative narrative.
An alternative to what he calls the one-sided narrative being presented by Western media outlets.
And that phrase, alternative narrative, leads us directly into RT's global playbook.
Let's analyze that playbook. How do they actually define this alternative narrative in places like India? in non-European markets.
The source is very clear about the pattern. Critics around the world dismiss RT as Kremlin propaganda.
Which, given its direct state funding and editorial control, it is.
Of course, but RT consistently frames itself as the necessary alternative voice. And that's key to building trust in regions that are often, and sometimes justifiably, critical of American or European foreign policy.
So they're not really selling Russia, they're selling anti-Western sentiment.
Precisely. The playbook is simple. Frame Russia as a friend and an ally to any country that feels challenged by or opposed to Western dominance.
You create a binary choice for the audience.
Yes. The alternative narrative means you find the weakest political and historical points of the West, and you just relentlessly attack them, while positioning Moscow as this dependable counterweight.
And in India, they're backing this strategy with real resources. We mentioned the 100 staff, but crucially, they're broadcasting 4 daily English-language news bulletins.
And that's the engine of the influence operation, that consistent, high-frequency daily injection of the Kremlin's message.
Especially in English, which is the language of the political, military, and commercial elites in India.
4 daily bulletins ensure that the Russian narrative, whether it's about Ukraine or oil sanctions or global politics, is always in the conversation, always there to challenge the established Western media framework.
It's fascinating how quickly they pivoted their content to make it effective. Which brings us to the psychological heart of this whole thing, exploiting existing grievances.
This is where the insights from Dr. Precious N. Chatterjee-Doody at the UK's Open University are so crucial. Her research shows that since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Russia's information efforts are focused heavily on what it calls the world majority.
And what exactly does Russia mean by the world majority?
It refers to that vast collection of nations, mainly in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, that often feel disadvantaged or, actively harmed by a system they see as being led and dominated by the U.S. and Western Europe.
And India, as the world's most populous democracy, is a foundational component of that target audience.
A key component. So if you're targeting people who already feel disadvantaged by the West, the most effective message isn't Russia is good.
No, it's the West is hypocritical and you can't trust them.
That is the cornerstone of the psychological tactics. Dr. Chatterjee-Doody found that right after the invasion, RT's online English language content saw a dramatic shift towards Indian audiences.
And what was that content focused on?
It zeroed in very heavily on Western hypocrisy, and specifically the historical legacy of British imperialism.
So they're taking genuine historical pain, decades of resentment, and they're weaponizing it, turning it into a geopolitical asset for the Kremlin's current goals.
It's a very insidious form of narrative construction.
They're essentially saying, we hear your pain, we validate your resentment of the West, so you should trust us against the West.
And the entire strategy is to build this story where Western nations are always acting only in their own self-interest, confirming that deep-seated suspicion. The implication is that Russia is somehow different.
Part of this wider world, acting in solidarity.
But if we just step back for a moment, the source material forces us to see the massive contradiction here. This whole narrative is completely cynical, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's historical exploitation that's just dressed up as solidarity.
The source points out that RT pursues this by appealing to post-colonial antipathies, while completely, and I mean completely, glossing over Russia's extensive history of imperialism.
Not to mention its own powerful position in global institutions like the UN Security Council.
It's strategic gaslighting on a global scale. They're highlighting the past sins of European powers to distract from their own historical record, and, critically, their current imperial-style actions in Ukraine.
It's selective memory, designed purely to build support, or at least acquiescence, for Russia's foreign policy.
And that's the definition of the influence operation. It deepens divisions, it exploits historical wounds, and it undermines trust in Western institutions, all to achieve Russia's policy goals without firing a shot.
So if we synthesize everything, the presidential launch, the 100 staff, the targeting of historical grievances, the urgent geopolitical need, it becomes undeniably clear. RT's function is not journalism.
It is not a neutral media outlet. It's a dedicated, state-directed weapon designed to build support for Russia's agenda. And what makes this launch in India so potentially effective is the infrastructure they already have.
That's the piggyback network the source mentions. We should be really clear about what that means for the audience.
The term piggyback means RT isn't starting from scratch. It's not trying to convince people to subscribe to a new channel.
Right.
Its existing international English channel is already available in the standard TV packages from 18 major Indian media operators. Think cable and satellite providers. RT India can just substitute its targeted content into those already established pipelines.
That is a staggering strategic advantage. The content immediately bypasses the normal difficulty of breaking into a foreign market.
It does. And when you combine those 18 operators, RT immediately has a potential audience of 675 million viewers.
675 million.
Just to put that in perspective, that's roughly double the population of the entire European Union. This high-reach infrastructure transforms the operation into a highly effective strategic weapon. It's capable of shaping national discourse on a massive scale.
It stops being about sharing news and starts being about altering the fundamental political loyalties of a population.
And given the clear goal to block Western influence, advance Russian objectives, exploit anti-Western sentiment, and given that this tool is controlled by people dedicated to military conflict, we have to confront the final critical question.
What are the long-term consequences when a country allows a foreign state to establish this kind of high-reach communication tool, one specifically designed to manipulate its own population's narratives and political loyalties?
You're giving a strategic foothold into your nation's information space. You're allowing an instrument dedicated to spreading division and institutional decay to operate freely within your borders.
So we have to ask, what price might India ultimately pay for allowing this strategic weapon to operate unchecked, shaping the beliefs of potentially hundreds of millions of people to serve the policy goals of a foreign power? That's the real deep dive India has to confront.